Welcome. Today we're exploring how to build meaningful creative work by layering a strong foundation. Whether you're designing, writing, building, or innovating, the best creative outcomes come from understanding and implementing core principles first. Over the next few minutes, we'll break down exactly how to approach your creative process methodically, starting with what matters most. Let's dive in. Creating compelling creative work today requires far more than a single document or vision. The modern creative asset stack is fundamentally multidimensional. When we talk about creative asset stacks, we mean all of it. Let me break down the 4 essential layers. First, the written documents, your scripts, dialogue, and scene headings that form the narrative backbone. Second, the visual references, storyboards, character studies, and mood boards that define the aesthetic direction. Third, audio direction notes, the ambience cues and sound effect markers that add sonic dimension. And fourth, the moving image tests, validating your creative choices through actual motion and composition. These aren't separate deliverables, they're interconnected components of a single cohesive creative foundation. When layered together, they create clarity, alignment, and confidence before production even begins. Rather than treating your creative assets as separate, disconnected pieces, think of them as interconnected foundational layers. Starting with your written layer, your core concepts and narrative, you build upward through visual design, audio elements, and finally moving image. Each layer strengthens and reinforces the ones beneath it. This integrated approach ensures consistency across all your creative work and creates a much more powerful, unified message than if these assets existed in isolation. Here's a critical principle. Knowing which layers your project requires is a planning decision, not an afterthought. Notice the diagram shows 4 potential layers: pre-production planning and post-production afterthought, arranged as possibilities, not requirements. The key insight here is that not every project needs all 4. Some projects might only require pre-production planning and execution. Others might need additional layers depending on their complexity. The mistake teams make is discovering layer needs too late, after production has already begun. By making these decisions up front, during your pre-production planning phase, you establish clear boundaries, allocate resources efficiently, and prevent costly changes down the road. So as you approach your own projects, ask yourself, which of these layers does this particular project actually need? Make that decision intentionally and make it early. Different projects demand different combinations of creative layers to authentically communicate their tone and vision. Notice how a novel pitch relies almost exclusively on visual elements. We need readers to see and imagine the world. A documentary pitch, by contrast, needs both visual and audio activated. Compelling imagery paired with a strong narrative voice proves the documentary's credibility and emotional tone. And an educator's curriculum takes the most comprehensive approach, layering written content for clarity, audio for engagement through narration, and interactive moving elements to guide learners through the material. The point isn't to use every layer every time. It's to identify which specific combination of layers will most effectively serve your project's unique purpose. Notice the stark difference between these 2 timelines. In timeline A, the afterthought, asset layers are an afterthought, produced last. This reactive approach creates unnecessary pressure and limits what you can actually accomplish. But look at timeline B, the Forge Foundation, where you map your required asset layers early. By planning your layers up front, you completely transform both what you produce and the order in which you produce it. The assets that should be foundational get built first, supporting everything that comes after. This isn't just a scheduling trick, it's a fundamental shift from reactive firefighting to proactive strategy. Early mapping gives you the clarity and structure needed to work smarter, not just harder. So here's the real question we need to sit with. What kinds of assets do you typically produce last, even though they probably should come earlier? For most creators, it's the foundational work, the stuff that would actually make everything else easier. That's what we call the forge. It's about intentionally creating those core assets up front: your style guides, your character definitions, your narrative frameworks, your visual systems. If this resonates with you, if you're nodding along thinking, yes, I've definitely done this backwards, then this is your invitation to engage. Comment with the word forge, and let's start a conversation about building our creative foundations the right way.